everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors Podcast. Woohoo! 2022! Looking at you. Pew, pew. Choo, choo. Wow, New Year. What you gonna do? 2022. All right, so our new season officially starts in March. We are getting ready for Market Research March in prep for Self-Tape May 2022. But I know that it's a new year. Everyone wants to get it going and have some inspiration. So I'm re-airing our last season's Get Your Shit Together series. This is several episodes. Lots of actors who did what it took to get their shit together and then they got working. So this is for you. They are so inspirational, so exciting. I love you. New episodes in March. I will talk to you soon. All right, get your shit together. I don't know what that sound is. It's like a explosion of joy for your new year. Get it, book it. Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and this is episode number 69. Nice. That's what Jesse and I do every time we're in the house and the number 69 gets thrown around. We go, nice. That's a little personal peek into my home life. You're welcome. 69, feeling just fine in your acting career. Hopefully you're feeling better than fine, but if you're feeling just fine, I will take it. This is, surprise, the season finale. Woo, 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 woo. The thing about the season finale is that we're going to just take a short hiatus, and then we're coming back for Self-Tape May. So I hope you are all getting ready for Self-Tape May. Listen, we are going into Market Research March. I'm not going to have episodes on during March because I have things to do, like get your Self-Tape May season going. But don't wait until May happens to go getting your sides and stuff together. Go now, start gathering sides, just get like 16 things of sides. Commercials are on Self-Tape right now. If you know anybody who's doing commercials mostly, have them join. 16 self-tapes in the month of May. Self-Tape May. Numero tres. We are doing our third Self-Tape May. It is on Instagram. It is a movement. So do your market research in March. Start looking at the shows casting in your area. Look at the shows casting and shooting, most importantly, shooting in your area. During COVID, it is resident local hire. They don't want you to come from out of state. You got a resident local hire. So what's shooting in your residency? So if you're in Los Angeles, what are all the shows shooting in LA? If you're in New Mexico, what are all the shows shooting in New Mexico? If you're in New York, what are those shows? Investigate, find scripts. Where do you find scripts? You can find them on Showfax. Honestly, just go through Self-Tape May and ask other people who've done a self-tape that you want to do if you could have the sides, and ask them if they'll email them to you. I'm certain that they will. Get sides. Get your materials together. You start doing that in March so that in May you are ready to jam. 16 tapes in 1 month is hard enough. If you have to spend a lot of time looking for material, the more specific you are with your intention in Self-Tape May, the better Self-Tape May is and the more successful it will be for you. If you just want to get 16 tapes done, that's a great intention. If you want to get 16 tapes done and work on like jargon, fantastic intention. If you want to get 16 tapes done and work on comedies shooting in your market, do it. I love it. Self-Tape May is a free movement. It is free. So just so you guys know, it is a social media free movement. If you see anywhere on the interweb where people are charging for Self-Tape May, or people like, where do I sign up for Self-Tape May? It is free. There is no sign up. You do it on social media. It is free. Okay? It's free. It's like the best price ever. Self-Tape May is coming. I will see you guys then. But until then, I have this incredible episode with the one, the only, Chuck Filipov. Now listen, Chuck is so great. Chuck is a filmmaker. He is an actor. He is a creator. You guys are you're going to jive with his journey so much. He is another actor that people would watch him and, say like, God, that was like the most, like agents and reps and all these people, like, that was the most incredible. You were like so great. And then he would be like, oh, great. So they were like, oh, no, we're not going to rep you. And so he just realized there was a discrepancy, as I talk about all the time in this podcast, between his talent, what he could do as an actor and his training, and then what he can do in terms of booking and translating that talent into being a booking, working actor. Listen, he has really transformed his career through getting his shit together, and you're going to be so inspired. You guys, I just want you to know, thank you so much for your reviews. Every time somebody sends me a review, it's like somebody opened up a magical portal and like transferred me into this alternate reality where we're not in COVID. And I get to like see everybody, and I get to like give incredible hugs to people, and I can like go shopping, and I don't have to wear a mask, and I can just like show my adorable, beautiful face to the world with all of its smiling goodness. And we can just like skip down the street and eat at restaurants and just like chill out and have like incredible live shows and just be like so one together out in this world. That's literally how much relief your iTunes reviews bring me. So if you're like, God, I just want to like pep Audrey up today, I just want to give her like a little pep in her step, please give me an Apple Podcast review, also known as iTunes reviews, because iTunes doesn't exist anymore. So Apple Podcast reviews. Shout out to KKOZoo, Alisa Fave, Hustling 47, Hey Blah, Sammy Ashes Nicole, The Booze 85, Shaved Sides, Reed Emmons, Rendell Kennedy 24, The Wuffy Factor, I love your names, you guys, Dempsey Logan, Jeff Friedman, Melanu, and Kaz156. Thank you so much for reviews, you guys. I'm telling you, they make me so happy. So please, please, please take a second, put your dog down real quick, and just go on to Apple Podcasts and write a little review. It's it's so happy. This episode is brought to you by WeAudition.com. That's WeAudition.com. Promo code Audrey25. You guys, you have to be on We Audition, and you have to practice. We're doing Self-Tape May. Get prepped for Self-Tape May. Go make money as an actor on We Audition. Go give actors money on We Audition. I use We Audition, like every week. We are collaborating with random people all day, every day. That's our job. So please get comfortable. Go on WeAudition.com, promo code Audrey25. I can't stress it enough. Get ready, Self-Tape May, get practicing. This episode is also brought to you by Home Chef. That's homechef.com. You guys, I'm going to be so real with you about Home Chef. I don't have the energy to do a lot of crazy cooking and a lot of crazy grocery shopping. I don't. I'm tired. I'm just really tired. At the beginning of this pandemic, we decided that we were going to try all of the home meal places. And we did one after the other. And the one that we really concluded on was Home Chef for lots of different reasons. They've got salads on there. They've got fish. They've got some vegetarian options. They've got easy meals that basically you just take the chicken and then the broccoli, and they got sauce in a pouch with some vegetables, and you just throw it in this little tin that they give you, and you throw it in the oven, and then you just let it sit there for 25 minutes, and then you have this easy, delicious, simple home-cooked meal. Oh my God. It's delicious, and it's just so much easier. Go to audreyhelpsactorspodcast.com/homechef for $35 off your first order. If nothing else, just go get $35 worth of free food. Do me a solid. Go get $35 of free food on me. That would be just awesome if you could just go do that. All right, you guys, I hope you've got a self-tape today, and I hope you book it. it. Book it. You're gonna book it. You're gonna book it, book it, book it, book it, book it. You're gonna book it. You're gonna book it. We have a lot of self-tapes that have been booking from guests. They've done self-tapes and then they booked that job. And I've been posting them on Instagram. So check it out for what a booking self-tape looks like, because I'd love to investigate what that is. So I hope you book it like them. Book it.
Audrey helps actors because they don't know anything.
Hi, everybody. I'm Audrey Moore with Audrey Helps Actors, and today we have
Chuck Filipov.
Hi, Chuck. How are you?
Hey, I'm all right now that you're here. How are you doing?
I'm doing wonderful. So glad to see your face. So
Same.
We are recording here during COVID over Zoom, and I am putting together a Get Your Shit Together series for people to have some information, inspiration, and really just some clarity and evidence that in getting your shit together, you can have some really good results from it. And so I'm talking to friends of mine who have had a similar journey that I've had in just sort of figuring out their casting, figuring out some materials, figuring out how to align that, build relationships. And then over time, despite years of really no traction, starting to see some real traction occur. And you've really had this experience. So I would love for you to tell me one right now, sort of what your landscape looks like. Are you repped? Are you union? How long have you been pursuing acting? All that sort of stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I'm fully repped, and I'm very proud and grateful for that. I have an agent and a manager. I am in the union. I joined about a year and a half ago after my second SAG project. Mm-hmm. I have known that this is what I wanted to dedicate my life to since I was 14. Mm-hmm. I started doing it when I was 8. And I feel like around 2015 is when I really started to get things together. And that's when I really started to hone in and focus on, okay, I'm going to dedicate myself to making a pursuit of this.
You and I are friends. We've known each other for a while. And it felt like it was over the last 2 to 3 years that you really started to work differently and work properly. So I know that you listen to the podcast. I know that you recommend it to everyone, which is wonderful. And tell everyone a little bit about some of the tools that you were able to wield in order to start getting some traction.
Mm-hmm. I feel like around the time that you're talking about 2 or 3 years ago, is when I started to get clear. I did a 2-year training program before that, and I was very much focused on just finding a way of working and really getting a technique down. And then there was a point where I was just so frustrated about not having a clear idea about what steps to take on the side that they don't teach us growing up, the career side, that I thought, even if I don't act for 2 months, I am just going to dedicate myself to seeking every avenue I can to find guidance on the career path. Mm-hmm. And through things like that, I ended up listening to the podcast. I ended up encountering Amy Linden. Mm-hmm. And so I started to meet people who the materials were the first thing. Mm-hmm. And I think rightfully so, that just made sense that everyone would look, okay, what are your materials? And how do you see yourself casting wise? Those seemed to be like the first 2 entry points.
Mm-hmm. I love that you said that you put the acting first and the training first, and then you were able to see, okay, there's something that's happening where I feel like my talent and my capability is coming together, but I need to turn that into being like a working actor. And I maybe don't have all the information required to make that transition. And so I do feel it goes both ways, that you need to be able to have a craft, have an art form, have a skill set. And then you also need to know how to be of value in a business that is very oversaturated.
Yeah, well, it's like, what's in the way right now? Mm-hmm. What do I have working for me? And then what, if I'm frustrated right now, or if I'm depressed because no progress seems to be happening, or I'm falling out of love with this, or it's breaking my heart, then it's just important to keep asking, okay, why? And why? And to get really specific, I think. And then for me, it was, because I love this so much. And I just come off doing a play out of town for 2 months during pilot season and getting my equity card. But then I was like, okay, but now I am going back to LA. I'm not going back to Chicago. I'm not going back to New York. I'm going back to LA. And I know that, and I decided that. So the thing that I love and I feel like I can do is I can do a play, but I can't do this other stuff where I can't seem to book a co-star.
Well, first of all, I want to ask you about your representation, because such a big deal is like getting representation, getting quality representation. And how was that journey? Did you get representation right out of your training program? Was it something that you sort of slowly built, slowly but surely? Did the attitude of that representation change from you just being a talented person to them being a talented person with like a focus and a direction?
I think part of it was through work and part of it was through referrals. So in 2018, beginning of 2018, I all of a sudden had 3 consecutive meetings with reps. One day was a manager, the next day was a manager, next day was an agent. One of those came because I was doing a class where the teacher and friend of mine who does the class brings in people for kind of like showcases. And I was called in for a meeting by a manager who came in. So I ended up meeting with this person, and then through a friend of a friend referred me to their agent, and I had a meeting with her. I ended up signing with her.
That's awesome. And what do you feel like was the thing that helps you get those meetings? Just pure raw talent with a little bit of training, relationships, like what occurred?
Yeah, in that beginning phase, I was very lucky in that anytime I did a rep showcase of any sort, I got some traction. I got requested for a meeting or something. Even before that I did, but I got called in for a meeting with a bigger size agency a year before that. And the meeting was great. And they were like, let us know when you have some more credits. Or like, I was not even eligible at that point, I don't think. And so it's like, they loved me, but they couldn't do anything with me.
Yeah.
So at that point, I think it was the work that I was putting in on the acting front, but then that only got me so far.
Yeah. What I love about what you just said too is this reality that people have of like, I wasn't at that place. I wasn't viable to them yet. Right. Like I couldn't add value yet to their roster. And I always say when people like, I just think like as actors, we have no concept of what the agents are actually doing. And I love to talk to actors and I go like, okay, what are your like monthly bills? Right. And they're like, okay, $3,000. I'm like, okay, great. So if your bills are $3,000, let's say like today you woke up and you decide I'm going to be an agent. That means that you need your roster of actors a month to bring in themselves $30,000 just for you to pay your bills, like just for you to pay them. And then God forbid you have like business growth expenses and you just add like another $1,500 to that. You now need your actors to bring in $45,000 a month for you to simply pay your bills in a large city and then also maybe grow your business to some degree. And we're not even talking like a fantastic life. We're talking like you have an apartment, you like have a subway card, you know, you can go to the grocery store, right? Like just these little things. And then I say to them like, okay, so what would you know in terms of if you were to be an agent right now, would you sign yourself? Like, would you be like, this person is going to help me make 45, or this person is going to be a part of a group that will help my roster earn $45,000 a month? And they're like, no. And I'm like, right.
I feel like one of the problems for me for the longest time, and I feel for a lot of people, are the myths or the one-off stories that are put out there about the reps who take a chance on someone.
Yeah.
Which is for sure a real thing that happens. But you hear about Amy Adams coming and she had nothing and the agent signed her and took a chance. And I think that's a tremendous disservice to whatever crazy hard work and hard path those people must have had, aside from that one day that everyone hears about. But it's also, I think it becomes something that's relied on. And that's, to be honest, what I thought. I thought, oh, this great upper mid-size agency called me and I had no credits. I was like, oh, this is it. This is that story that people say. And then the first question she asked when she brought me in, having not seen my material, she was like, so let's talk about your reel. Yes. As soon as she said that, I was like, oh, right. I don't have the material she's looking for.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. And so was that like a light bulb moment for you in terms of what you need to bring or offer for others to have something to help sell you?
It helped along the way. I think it helped demolish that myth in my mind, because I was like, oh my God, I gotta have this person. But what I had didn't warrant getting her.
Yeah.
And that takes away from that just believing in the actor thing.
Yeah, for years I used to have, I mean, still do, not as much anymore because people know who I am, but meaning they know my philosophy on everything. But I used to have actor friends all the time come up to me, like when I was in class years ago, and they would be like, Audrey, I have there's this audition that's happening right now for this character, for this thing. And just like, I have to get in because it's so right for me. And I would say, oh, okay. Do you know the casting director for the project? And they'd be like, no. Like, okay, great. Do you have an agent who knows the casting director who can get you in for the project? No. Okay. Do you have any materials that serve as evidence that you are incredible for this part? No. Okay. Well, then you're not going to get in for this part. And really just sort of demystifying, not because you shouldn't necessarily, not because, in a fair world, this isn't like, I'm not saying this isn't a great part for somebody, but it's just like, you haven't done the prep work to be ready to get this audition, not even in just the execution of the audition, but in earning the relationships and the trust to be one of the 20 to 40 people who's going to get that time slot. Out of the 5,000 who want it.
And everyone who I knew and trusted as I was growing up, and when I got a BA in theater and all that, it was clear that it was going to be about the acting work. And so I think a lot of people think they earn it because they should get those opportunities because they're so damn good and they dedicate so much to their craft that they could get in there and blow people away, which it happens. But I think it's almost like saying, I want to get wealthy by buying a lottery ticket once a month.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I hope you do. I hope you buy a lottery ticket.
For
I hope you
sure.
win the lottery,
I hope that happens for everyone. It's just people think that that's the way, I think. And it's not the way.
But wait, Chuck, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by weaudition.com. That's weaudition.com. Promo code Audrey25. You guys, weaudition.com. Self-Tape May is coming up. Self-tape practice, as you can hear from all of the guests that I've had on so far, self-tape practice is an essential component to getting your audition skills up and keeping them up. We have had some really great self-tape examples on Instagram from guests this season who have booked off of tape. I've put their booking tapes on social media so that you guys can see it. Audrey Helps Actors podcast on Instagram. And you can just see like what it takes to book a self-tape, and you have to practice that. You have to investigate that. And there's so many incredible actors. There are coaches. There are all kinds of people. And you yourself, if you're sitting at home and you just want to like get comfortable like reading with strangers, just put yourself out there to be a reader for other people and they can just like tip you. It's very cheap. It's like some people are on there for like $0 and you can just like tip them $5 for, the time they're spending helping you as a reader. It's also great. You can find your favorite people. I have favorite readers on We Audition. Like if you want to work with somebody who's like maybe a father figure because that's the audition, then cast your reader, you guys. Go on We Audition and find somebody that you feel like, yes, that could be a dad for me, and then have that be your reader. If it's somebody that's like your bestie, then cast somebody that you feel like, oh my God, that person and I could be just like total besties. If it's somebody that you feel like you want to be intimidated by, find somebody on We Audition that you feel like maybe you would be intimidated by and hire them. Make the acting and the audition practice and process easier on yourself. And don't wait until you have a real audition to start using We Audition. You want to start practicing before you get the auditions, because that way you're comfortable with it. Everything's over the internet now. All of our auditions are self-tapes and Zooms and all those things. And I love those of you who ask your partners and your roommates to help you, but give them a break sometimes. I mean, I like my poor sweet husband. I just can't ask him to help me as often as I need help. So I reserve him for few and far between, and I'm on weaudition.com, promo code Audrey25 for the rest. Just getting the text under my belt. We audition, promo code Audrey25. If you have a listener question, please call in 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hi, Audrey. My name's Taylor. I'm a listener from Los Angeles. I love your show. I'm so glad there's a new season. I look forward to listening to it while I walk my dog as soon as there's a new episode out. My question for you today is, what is a respectful way to approach your agent if they send you an audition where you read the script and it goes against your morals or your values in some way, and it's just flat out not a character that you are interested in playing? A little backstory, I have had a broader discussion with them pretty vaguely about what I am okay with doing, what I'm not okay with doing, but this, in this instance, is just a very specific to the script type situation. Thank you so much, and I can't wait to hear your response.
Hi, Taylor. I love this question. It's so great. I'm glad that you've already had a sort of preemptive discussion with your reps about what you aren't comfortable with. This is definitely something you guys want to do in a meeting. If you have a casting where you think people are going to want you to be naked all the time and do sexual scenes, as we talked in one of the earlier episodes where we talk about sex and sex on set, that's definitely something you want to have that conversation as soon as possible. If you wait until you get the audition, you're going to be screwed. I mean, it's going to be much harder to have that conversation afterwards rather than before. However, you can't know what you don't know, and it's a working, growing, building relationship. So maybe you said to your rep, I don't want to do like a ton, you were sort of more general, like sexual situations. Like, I sort of don't want to do something like that. Like, I'm not really sure that I want to do that. Then you get an actual script and it's you really going to town on somebody and a lot of heavy sexual situations or whatever it is that's anyone's particular case. A good time then to come back to it and say, hey, thank you so much for this appointment. I really appreciate it. I read the script. I remember how we had that discussion about, sexuality or whatever your thing is. Maybe it's about racial discrimination or the way that people who look like you, whether that's your age or your ethnic background or whatever it is, are represented. You know how we've had that conversation in the past? Because just so you know, like your agents aren't going to be able to read every single script. So I read the script and I just wanted to circle back with you about that because in this script, this thing that we had talked about that I wasn't comfortable with doing, it's in this script. So I'm afraid I'm going to politely have to decline and pass this audition because it is something that goes against my morals, my ethics, and my values. And I really appreciate, and this is a really important part, I really appreciate your understanding and your camaraderie with me in this situation. It's so valuable to me that you and I have had this conversation, and I am so grateful for you getting me the appointment and also for your support in having to pass. Thank you so much. Now, if you do that and then you get an email back that's like, Taylor, I can't believe that you would pass on this project. I mean, you have no credits, you haven't been auditioning, and I finally get you an audition. Things like whatever, fill in the blank is your issue, that stuff that can be worked out. You are a new actor. You have to sort of take what you can get out of the gate, or you haven't worked in a while. You have to take what you can get, all of that sort of stuff. Then you have to really evaluate your relationship with your representation. Don't get bullied. And if you have a feeling like you are going to pass an audition, part of it is being willing to get into a confrontation with somebody and have that confrontation possibly end poorly. So do your best to be diplomatic and gracious and grateful in the beginning, and maybe be aware of a possible pushback, and then decide before you send the communication that's gracious how you will handle a possible pushback. So that if they say, I don't remember that conversation, this is a pandemic, we have to take every audition that we can get, you have to be ready to know how you're going to respond to that. And it may end with you saying, I absolutely understand. Thank you so much. I understand this is a pandemic. I really am not comfortable with this material. Again, I'm going to have to pass. They may say to you, well, then we can't work together. And that's something that you're just going to have to be ready for. And that's why standing up for your morals and your values and your ethics is hard, especially in a saturated market, because there are a lot of people who will chip away at what you are willing and not willing to do in order to get what they want and get what they need. So good luck. Something I recommend everyone doing is going online and researching human resource articles. There's lots of great HR articles, and they have all kinds of articles about conflict resolution tactics. So this is your way in getting yourself out of major conflicts. There's a reason why people in HR fire somebody, and then the person you think should walk away like sobbing, and instead they walk away like hopeful and thoughtful and like hugging the HR rep. It's because they are trained in conflict resolution. That's something I really recommend having in your back pocket and being ready to do. All right, I hope that was helpful.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Yeah. And here's the thing. I hope you do. I hope you buy a lottery ticket. I
For
hope you
sure.
win the lottery, you know.
I hope that happens for everyone. It's just people think that that's the way, I think. And it's not the way.
So you get these agents, and right away, is there a gap between like you getting these agents and getting whatever auditions you can get, and then you sort of really kind of shifting and focusing on a specific kind of casting and a casting category and getting materials to represent that? What was the before and after, and what was the impetus for that change?
So the other manager who I met with on those 3 days in a row, which is crazy, you go years without anything, and then all of a sudden it happens 3 days in a row, but that seems to be normal. One of them was another person who I was like, ooh, this is like a real upper tier manager. They called me in after a showcase. They met with me for half an hour, gave me their time during pilot season. And they were like, I gotta think on you. And they're like, because I really like you, but I know I'd have to do some heavy lifting with you. That was another one of those signs. And I think those things nudged me towards, I just got to get clear on what I need to do so that those meetings become yeses.
What I love too is that you're talking about like clarity, that it wasn't a talent issue. It seemed like people were interested in you. What you were bringing to the table in terms of your acting was like getting bites in terms of, they thought like the actual, what you bring in terms of an actor is of value. But then they were sort of like, I don't know, like you just maybe don't have enough together, that the value that the acting brings in and of itself is going to then equal easy, steady, or even not easy, but just like not super hard, steady financial value to their roster.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was your feeling about that? Did you feel like that was a conclusion you were able to come to? And then you felt like, oh, there's just some business stuff that needs to be addressed? Or were you like, I don't even know what it is that needs to be addressed. I just know it's not the acting.
Yeah, exactly that. I knew it wasn't the acting, and I poured everything into the acting. And that's the most important part for me. It always will be. But the other things were getting in the way of the acting is the problem. And so, it was when I get back, even if it's just 2-3 months and I don't even focus on acting, I just focus on the career side, I was going to do it. And I started to then, I met with Amy, I listened to your podcast, and I was doing it every day. So it's not like I learned everything in 2 days of having focus on it. It was like, it had to be a habit where like, it was going to be my daily routine that I was going to be educating myself day in, day out. And that's how I started to learn over time and become more fluent. And you and I actually chatted at one point. And I told you that I had been pinned for a CBS show that was shooting in Pittsburgh. And it was kind of a grungy guy. And at this point, so right now I have like a lot of kind of like really grungy, sad facial hair, scruffy. I didn't have that at the time. I had like a little stubble, but that was just because I hadn't shaved for 2 weeks. And you're like, why do you think you were pinned for that? And I was like, because I wore a black hoodie. I was like, sure. You're like, I think it's because you're trash.
I love that I say shit like that to people.
But you have this uncanny ability to have this very upbeat, kind of bright demeanor and say the realest, most direct shit.
Yeah.
You know, it's packaged in this very affirmative way, but you're able to say, look, that sucked dick. But you're able to say it in your way. So it's like, yeah, I guess it kind of did suck dick.
Yeah, that's right. No, I just like the things that people tell me back that I have said to them throughout my whole life is so horrifying to me.
Yeah, on paper, it's not great. On paper, it's not great. It doesn't read well.
No, it doesn't read well.
But it's so true. And it comes from a place of support. And honestly, I had met with someone for a 5-hour session of like archetype and branding and casting. None of that yielded you just telling me like, I think it's trash. I think you should go white trash. I think you should have a wife beater. And so I was like, oh, so that set me on the path. That to me, that was like the first step.
And you really like fucking went for it. And I remember thinking that was so cool. And then the results that you got from your headshots were so awesome. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, the thing is at the time that I was one of those, like, I don't want to deal with the bullshit of like going out and getting wardrobes all over. And like, I don't want to invest more than my headshot session in my headshots. But I was at a point where I was out of options. I was at the point of surrender. I was like, I'll do anything. If I trust you and you know what you're talking about and you understand the business, I want to hear whatever it is you have to say, whoever that is. So I was at a point of surrender and I was like, but what if, I get a thing and I have to shave? But I was like, fuck all that. I was like, you just got to leap. And so it felt risky at the time, but I let this all grow out. I let my hair grow out. I really researched and found someone who I was like, that's who I want shooting my headshots. Jimmy DiPietro did mine. And then listening to your episode with Buckley, I did the thing of like, okay, I got to get wardrobe. I got like, I knew which ones I wanted to get. I wanted to get wife beater was easy. I wanted to do one that was kind of like a sad sack, khaki jacket, kind of frumpy, kind of like the guy on Mindhunter. In the openings.
Totally.
Or who could be on Fargo. And like, I got clear and I started watching these shows. So started watching them, not just to watch them, but to watch them for what was being worn, what was unkempt. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do all this if I want.
Yeah, you also did this really smart thing where you started wearing makeup and stuff in your self-tapes because you yourself are actually like a really healthy guy, but some of the characters that you were playing were like a little bit more raw, to be honest.
Yes. So I got the headshots and I wanted to make sure so that it wasn't all in vain. I didn't just have the headshots, but I knew how to recreate the looks in a way. And so I did a styling session.
Love that.
I did a styling session with Teresa Baca and she showed me not just the hair, which was actually pretty easy to just make it look oily and combed, but she showed me things like taking this red kind of blush to like stroke under the eyes. And it gives you this kind of reddened look for addicts, people who haven't slept well, things like that. And then I also like, I love if it's something where like, I just put myself on tape for something yesterday where I'm living in a tent city and just taking like a little dust powder and it doesn't necessarily make you look like you have dirt on your face. But for me, if I take a little and I just rub it in, it gives me a little redness. It makes you look a little grimier. Grimier, even if there's not like, oh, there's dirt on the face, because dust powder can also, if you do it right, it makes you look like you have dirt or dust on your face. But yeah, doing things like that have helped out a lot. And then I actually had an audition for this kind of like panicked meth addict in a studio film. Right after that happened, I got called in because of those headshots.
Love it. Can you tell me what your rep's response to the headshots were? Were they well received? Were they nervous? What happened?
On my manager's end, the week leading into getting headshots, I knew what I wanted to do. They sent me a list of things that they wanted. And it was like a stoner for a sitcom, a nerd, a hipster. And then they sent me some pictures and they were all bright. And I knew that where I was going, that it wasn't going to be, the light wasn't going to be shining so bright.
I love the courage of this though. Cause I have to say like, this happens all the time where people get like a direction that they want to go in. And then you'll have representation who, not because they're bad or any of that, they just like, are like, actually, here's where I was seeing you. How about this? And then the conflict can come in of like, well, what do I do? Do I do like what I want to do? Or do I also try to do what they want to do? And sometimes in trying to like appease everyone, you then get like murky results because it's unclear.
Yeah. So I completely agree. And it's very agreeableness it can be a dangerous quality because of that. It's important to be able to be a good collaborator and work with people. But so I had to figure that out. I had to cause when I saw the email, I was like, oh,
I bet.
I mean, that's not the initial reaction isn't like this positive. It's like, fuck.
Yes.
Like, oh no. Okay. I got to figure this out.
Yeah.
So what I did is I negotiated. I was like, I'm going to add on 2 looks for this. I'm still going to have this photographer. So it's not going to be like natural, bright, sunshiny light, but I'm going to add these looks and we'll go from there. And then we had a conversation afterwards because they did think they were very stylized, very charactery, which they were. So when I had the conversation, it was very important to me that I hear what they have to say. I knew where I was coming from. I wanted to understand, so please tell me your thoughts. I want to understand everything about where you're coming from because I didn't want to just disregard anything that they had to say because I wanted to consider everything. They told me and I was like, great. So I just want you to know what I had in mind with these and what my experience has been like having those kind of more clean cut headshots, and I reviewed all my auditions from those because I didn't book anything. And I thought it was always someone who was like a little more specific, a little more charactery, it was usually for a comedy.
I love that you did your research to show them. I think that's really important because also you can be more secure in knowing you actually know what you're talking about because you've done the work to find out the actual results.
Yeah, well, because they were like, we just feel like it limits you when you can do all this other stuff too, and I knew that's where they were coming from. So I was like, I want to address that. I don't want to just dismiss that because I'm like, it does. It would open up more audition opportunities. I just knew that from past experiences, what resulted in that, and so I did let them know that, and we ended up negotiating. I was like, so look, guys, I would like to try these out. It's so soon since getting them. I'd like to invest now in a reel to kind of match these. And I said, how would you guys feel? Because I know you guys still want these 2 looks in a more bright way. If I were to invest 25% of whatever acting jobs I make into funding getting those. They're like, well, you could go like somewhere and get it done for like $200-300. And I was like, okay, so how about this? If I can find a place where I can do it for $200 total and we can just try those out, I'd be willing to do that. So it was playing ball a little. And I did end up getting those looks for them. Good. But I didn't spend an arm and a leg, but we negotiated and we worked it out.
And then once you had these shots, all of them, the ones that they were asking for, the ones that you went ahead and gotten, was there traction in both areas in terms of auditions? Great.
No, it was all mine.
I can love that. I love that. And then the traction that you got, as I remember, was pretty immediate. Like you got those shots and then suddenly you were getting auditions in that direction.
Yeah. And I had to see that to believe it because there was something almost magical about it because I got the headshots and I really, at this point, I was like, I had no other options. That really was my driving factor in all this is I just had I was all out of ideas and I just knew like, this is something that people were driving me in the direction of doing. Get headshots that match your casting. And I was clear, like, that's very different from what I've been doing. So I'm just going to do that. I didn't even expect in a way to get called in for vastly different things. I was just like, I'm going to do it because that's the only thing I know how to do right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I started seeing like, oh my God, I'm getting called in for Westerns and drug addicts. And it was so cool. Because I was seeing it happen and I had proof all of a sudden that that's how it can work.
And then what was your experience in terms of then getting auditions, being prepared? We started to talk about you using some of these techniques. And I love this because I had the same experience in terms of making sure that I could actually look like what I look like in the headshot. I didn't do a private with Teresa, but she was my actual makeup artist in my headshots. And so I wrote everything down. I was like, so what are you doing with the hair? And how are you doing with this? And what's the, and I still do that to this day. If I book a particular job and they use something that gives a particular look, I always take a picture, write it down, and then I go and buy it. If it's working, I want to emulate it. right?
Yeah.
And so many actors, I think, get these headshots and then somebody does their hair and makeup professionally, and then they've got zero ability to go in the room looking like the headshot says that they look. And then they're like, I just don't know. The headshots are working. I'm like, well, did you do your hair and did you dress and did you do, I'm sure. I love that you practice.
Yeah. Well, because I got the session and the session costs money.
Yeah, right.
I was like, I don't want to do the session and not get an audition for 2 weeks and then all of a sudden be like, I don't have a memory of how that worked.
Good
so
on you.
I would like most days I would take like one of my headshots and I would put it up on my computer screen. I got all the products that were described to me and I would just mimic that.
I love that. So then you started getting some auditions and then tell me about the beginning of all of this kind of paying off. You had this studio feature audition. And as I remember, like you were in the room with some people at some really solid agencies that you felt like they maybe out-resumed you, out-agency'd you. And you were like, fuck you. I went in and booked it.
Well, the thing is, the beautiful thing about that, and this is right now, this is what I love most about the acting side of it is when I got there, it was so short. What I did was so short. It was a day player thing, but it was life or death. It was screaming, running into a hospital with my ODing girlfriend, screaming for help. And what I did is before I went, it was an in-person audition and I met up with a friend to treat it as a self-tape first. And I put it on tape. I had like a wife beater and a black hoodie on. And I'd done myself up hair and makeup. And when I looked back, I saw my hoodie was like slightly draped off of my shoulder and it just fucking popped. It was this little thing, but like I saw like, oh, my shoulder was bare. And I was like, whoa, that really reads. I wouldn't have known
what did
that
it read
if I had watched
as?
back.
Can I ask you, what did it read as?
Unkempt, just ran a couple blocks to get there.
Yes.
It added texture to it.
I love that.
It's such a small clip. It's like a 15-second thing.
Yeah.
So I feel like in those 15-second things, there's a little bit of texture in the clothes or something.
Also, like that's what's called like a quick read. Like I always tell people, it's like a quick read. Are you quickly the thing that they need you to be? Right. And it's a visual medium. So like unlike theater where you're the person on stage the whole time and everyone's staring at you on stage, but it's not getting a tight, close read on exactly what's happening. And something like your hoodie being off your shoulder, like quickly says, been running, not able to pay attention to like how his clothes look, right?
But I wouldn't have thought of that. I only knew because I treated it as a tape beforehand.
Yeah. And where did you learn that incredible tip, Chuck?
You, Audrey. I learned that from you.
So you booked this job, this movie, spoiler alert, you guys. And I remember this was really like a shift where you were like, oh, I think maybe this is all working.
Yeah. Well, this was my now second big, like high professional credit. And that forced me into the union.
I love that. And then since then, you have gotten recurring roles. You've been on set for one job and had them call to book you on another job.
Yeah. That was a good Christmas is what they call it.
That was a good Christmas.
What I did is after all this happened, the next step for me was the reel. And to me, this was the scariest thing I've ever done.
Oh, interesting. Why
the
is that?
Scariest for a number of reasons. The expectation of if I'm going to invest thousands of dollars into getting like 3 scenes together. And it's going to be not only my absolute best quality work as far as my pure acting work, but also it's going to be in the exact right veins of my casting from everything, from the lighting and the sound to the writing. And I don't write. So I had to find a writer, all this stuff. And then on top of that, what I ended up doing is I shot them all 3 scenes in a day ultimately. And that's another tremendous amount of pressure because they're completely different scenes, hiring makeup for the day, all that stuff. There's this threshold that I think a lot of people talk about, especially in like self-growth people, about getting to the point where you're comfortable and then getting to the point where it gets really fucking scary because you're out of your usual zone. This to me, I see around my peers who I think are so capable, but for years they talk about, just like I did, getting the reel together, and it never happens. That's the one thing that never happens.
I have a friend who used to say, there's the cost of doing something, and then there's the cost of not doing something. And realizing the cost of not doing something, and it's often far more expensive.
It outweighed. I was at a point where the cost of not doing it outweighed. And that's a hard thing to make visible, I think. But I was at a point where it was clear to me. And that threshold of like, what if I give it my all and I fail? I think that's really what it comes down to. What is it? I give it all this money, all my time. I don't know if I do this once and it turns out to be a failure, or it doesn't catch, or it's not worth it. I don't know if I can do that again. Like, I don't know if I have the resources. But so I knew that was, to me, that was the only thing next. It's like, if I sacrificed all this for the headshots, I got to have things that match those headshots. And I don't know what else to do. Like, again, it was like, there was only one thing that I knew to do, and it was this. And so there was an opening. First, I was like, okay, I got to save up for a few months. And then there was an opening at an apartment that a former classmate of mine had. And I was like, oh man, this would really expedite the process. And like, there was this internal struggle, but I was just like, I'm just going to ask. And then I ended up taking the spot. And my mindset was, whatever trepidations I have about having a smaller space, having to deal with roommates again, which I was concerned about, I was like, I'm going to just be of the mindset that I am focused on this goal, and I'm going to be as stoic as I can about this, and try to remember that it was all for a reason. And so that was my mindset for doing that. That was a sacrifice that I made. I moved out of my 1-bedroom into a shabbier 3-bedroom, looking back, it wasn't a big sacrifice, but it was a scary risk at the time.
Yeah. It's scary to feel like you are going backwards a little bit, and you're not. It's like what you're doing. It didn't feel like it though. It felt like I was going forward.
You're
forward. Yeah. And I think that's such a great distinction, because I think
forwards towards my reel.
Right. Well, forwards towards a career, a choice of an investment in your career. And just like if you were going to open up a restaurant and you were able to be like, you know what, I can't get investors because nobody can taste the food. And in order to have tastings, it's like that I can't ask them to pay for their tastings. If they're going to invest in my business, I want them to come in and like taste my food and be really excited. And that's going to cost out of pocket money. There's just no other way to explain it. Then that will cost out of pocket money. And if I believe in the restaurant, if I believe in what it's going to do, then what can I do to find that money so that way I can invest it into people having a sampling of my food?
Yeah. And people get the things that they need. And so once you realize I need to do that and find a way.
I love that. I think that's so right.
People don't get what they want. People get what they need.
Yeah. I think that's so great. So you shot this reel, and then you said, and I think this is really great, you said that you were shooting all day. Like you were essentially like the lead for a 12-hour day with 3 different scenes and 3 different characters. And by the way, like we should all be so lucky, right? Like I would love to be in a sci-fi show where I'm playing 3 different versions of myself and I'm having to shoot 3 of them in one day.
So yeah, I mean, that was the scariest 2 weeks of my life leading up to that for sure. Just emotionally, imaginatively. It was because I worked so hard on all of it. And one involves what could be conceived as forms of schizophrenia. One was like I was being held at gunpoint in the hot desert heat, and I was threatened to like die in a trunk. And then there was another one where I was just like worked with a writer, and I got the script, and it wasn't as heightened as it, but I was like, what is going on? There's like this hacker thing, and I kind of know this woman. So there was like a lot of problem solving to do in all 3 of these scenes. And I was like, this 2 weeks, I'm doing nothing but focusing on everything I can do to make these scenes as honest as possible, with the idea of knowing that there's like these transitions and storytelling arcs that need to happen. And I ended up working this with my teacher, who I'm going to give a shout out. Alex Taylor is my personal hero. He trained me. He told me what this job is. Yeah. I absolutely love him. He changed my life.
That's great.
And I worked with him on these, and I worked them a week before we shot because I was like, I'm going to get some stuff to work with, and I'm going to go away. I'm going to spend a week kind of making adjustments. And I worked with him, and he's like, brother, I wouldn't touch it. And to hear that from someone who to me is the scariest person to work things in front of, I was really happy to hear that. But then I was terrified because I was like, I have a whole nother week. How am I going to fuck this up? If I did all this, like, and then I go and it's not as good as it needs to be, or if I don't manage to connect, I don't know how I'll live with myself. So like these thoughts start popping up when things are going more well than I'm used to. There's a scary thing of like,
what's
something
next?
This good.
Yeah.
Well, it's something this good does not happen for us. After years of disappointment and frustration and heartbreak and failures and life things too.
Yeah.
It's easy to feel like something bad is going to happen. And that fear almost took the life of me. I wasn't sleeping for a few days that week leading up to it, but I was like, look, I'm just going to have these thoughts, and meditation practices taught me just to relate to the thoughts as friendly as possible, to the point where I put in more work the days leading up to it just to touch in and make sure things are loose and all this stuff. And I worked it with him again, just to touch base. And he's like, yeah, don't worry about it. And I was like, great. And I was like, fuck, I'm so worried. And the night leading up, I had these thoughts of like, it just kept running through my head. It's all going to turn to shit. You'll see, you're going to get there on tomorrow, and you're going to fail. And I was just like in tears in bed. Like I was trying to get to sleep for 2 hours. And finally I remember I just put out my hand. I'm like, that's okay. If it's going to fail, that's fine, man.
Yeah.
I just need some help getting to sleep right now. And I not a religious person, but I just put out my hand and I was like, look, man, it's okay if it doesn't go well. I just need some help getting to sleep. And then all of a sudden sleep came over me.
Awesome.
And I woke up the next day and it was like a switch had been flipped. And I still had nerves going, but I got to set bright and early. And I knew, I was like, I'm a bad motherfucker. And I was like, and I'm about to unleash. And that whole day was one of the best days of my life.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Because we all have this pressure, you get a big audition and you're just like freaked out about it. Like, do you have enough time to get it ready or whatever it is? And it's so easy for us to worry about the results before it happened. And I've had this too, where I'm like, especially if it's something I haven't done before, I'm like, you know what? You haven't done this before. So maybe you're not going to be amazing at it. That's okay. Worse things have happened. Right. And I remember shooting like a multicam and I was like so freaked out. And I called all these people to figure out like, tell me about multicam. Like what happens? And like, what is it? And so I called these people just to try and again, do my research, be prepared. I worked it. And then sure enough, the next day I shot it. And I remember just saying to myself, you know what? You don't know what you're doing. Like you've never done this before. So don't expect that it's going to be like knock out the part amazing. Just like,
show up
and learn, see what can happen. Turns out I'm actually remarkably qualified and training kicked in and I was able to like do a really great job.
Because you learn things about yourself that you didn't know. When you face adversity and you actually show up and you don't quit, you understand yourself better. Because I have my ideas about how something's going to go. And plenty of times in my life, and I'm sure in almost everyone's life, where they haven't shown up for the dance. And then you don't know what happens. But the times that you do, you find out that there was your ideas of what's going to happen. And then there's the actuality of what you're capable of. And you don't know that until you do it.
But wait, Chuck, wait. I have to interrupt you.
Help me. I need some help.
And now it's time for listener questions.
I'm so scared.
This listener question is brought to you by Home Chef. That's Home Chef. www.audreyhelpsactorspodcast.com/home chef. Go get yourself $35 worth of free food. Please. It's a pandemic. Don't you want free food? Jesse and I, during the pandemic, I was like, I'm not going out to the grocery store and getting COVID. And also I'm tired. And so we tried all of the different home variety meals that like come to your house. And we landed on Home Chef because it was a combination of the best flavors, best options, and also simplicity. Some of them are like, here's all these ingredients and you get to chop and shave and cut and do all these crazy things. And I was like, gosh, I like don't want to make a sauce from scratch. I like really don't want to do that. So they have various recipes of various levels of difficulty. They will tell you on there what's easy and what's harder and what's the prep time and what's the cook time. They have all kinds of great fish. The fish tastes incredible. Lots of seafood on there. There's some vegetarian options on there. There's some salads. And it's just like simplified my life in such an incredible way. I do the grocery shopping and the cooking in the house. Jesse does the putting away of the groceries and the cleaning of the kitchens and the things, and just whatever I could do to just give myself some more time and energy, especially when we're all just like a little fried right now, is something I so recommend. The food is really, really good and easy to do, and they have some super simple meals, and I couldn't recommend it more highly. We've been doing it for the entire year. I haven't gotten bored of the food. It's been great. I so recommend it. AudreyHelpsActorsPodcast.com/Home Chef for $35 of free food for you off your first order. Also, if you have a listener question, please call 667-ACTOR-70. That's 667-ACTOR-70 for all your listener question needs.
Hey, Audrey. I'm calling in to ask you a question about reels and projects. I was lucky enough to book about 5 projects over the pandemic, but I'm waiting for them to come out. And I'm wondering if I should just wait until they all come out to pay my editor to update my reel, or if it's really important to stay competitive as an actor to update every time a project comes out. I'm just trying to be smart with your money over this time because you never know. And I also wanted to get your opinion on clips on Actors Access. How important do you think those are? I'm at a co-star level, so I know that matters as far as those things go. And then also, how important is it to have commercial and a dramatic reel? I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Thank you so much for the new season. I love your podcast. Really appreciate it. Thanks.
Oh my goodness, that was so many questions. Okay, so first and foremost, I would say I think it's valuable to learn how to cut your own footage. If that sounds too intimidating for you, I understand. But honestly, if you have like an Apple computer, it's not super impossible to do if you are just like adding a clip. That said, if that's too overwhelming for you, and I understand for some people it is, yeah, I mean, you have to update it every time. I don't know if this is still true, but it was true for a long time that every time you have a new reel, like you add a new reel to your profile on Breakdowns, it goes to the top of the submissions. So that's definitely important for somebody who is on the co-star level, because your headshot submissions and your submissions on Breakdowns are a really important part of the process of whether or not you're going to get an audition. It's less pitches and much more like, are they submitted? So because you are at co-star level, I definitely say every time you get a new piece of footage, I would include it. I would do it. That is the cost of business. And I know that it can get expensive, but you know, materials, your evidence of what you have done and what you can do is like the most important thing. It is your work and the growth and experience and the evidence of that growth and experience continually showing up for people to see is arguably the most important investment that you can do in terms of your advertising materials. So I say absolutely with each new project, I would add and add and then add and then add and then add. Now, if you have an overly expensive editor who's charging you $1 jillion to add a new scene, I don't know, maybe look into a different solution. But I would add every time you get a new scene. In terms of clips, I'm so glad you had this question. I was just on Clubhouse the other day listening in, and some casting directors were weighing in on the clips versus the longer stuff. And they did say for co-stars, sometimes that's helpful for co-star actors. Once you get above the co-star level, a larger reel is something that they're just going to click, 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 click through anyway. One of the casting directors also did say that they like to have both a longer reel and also some clips, because if they know that you're right for a role, what they'll do is they'll put your audition and then they'll add on the appropriate clip onto that audition, and that helps them sell you to the production. And sometimes if they have like this one giant solid reel, then you might have something on the reel that goes against what they're trying to show production you can play. But again, this is like for the co-star level, that's something that is helpful. But I've heard all of it. I mean, I've definitely heard what's not helpful is like the descriptions, like, sad mom procedural. Instead, it's just like, here is this like TV show. If it's a bunch of films and they don't know what's what, then you can have a conversation with your representation about what the trend is in your particular market. But generally speaking, for co-stars, what I just heard like yesterday, I think it was that for co-stars, the clips are helpful, and also to have a longer reel as well can be great. Then in terms of separate reel and then a separate commercial reel, commercial reels, I don't know who's watching the commercial reels. I have to say, in terms of commercial market, ad agencies, they don't want you to have worked for competing companies necessarily. Like, they understand that we're actors and that we do stuff like that. But I have one friend who's just like a commercial king, and he cuts a commercial reel, but I don't really know to what end. I think if you have a strong theatrical reel, that's what I'm hearing from casting right now, is that they just want to see you act, particularly if you're doing a lot of comedy commercials. Those comedy commercials, having a strong comedic reel, I think is often more valuable than having the commercial reel, because if you're going to do an audition and try to book a job on McDonald's, but then you have on your commercial reel some footage from Wendy's commercial that you did, then it can definitely go against you for your McDonald's commercial. So I think not having a commercial reel, but that also kind of depends on your market. But definitely in Los Angeles, I'm not told that I need a commercial reel. A commercial reel is important if you're trying to get better commercial representation so they can see all the commercials you booked in terms of representation. But in terms of actual companies looking to hire you, theatrically, they don't care about your commercial reel, and commercials don't really want to see that you've worked for a competing company. So I think sometimes it can hurt you. So that's my 2 cents about that. It is helpful to have a different comedy and drama reel sometimes. If you have like really wacky comedy characters and then you have really great dramatic footage, I do think sometimes creatives get scared when you're like, but I'm funny. And they're like, oh God, we definitely just want somebody who's like really dark and mysterious. Like, but I'm also that. And they're like, no, we saw you be funny. You can't be dark and mysterious, or vice versa. So I think having a separate comedy and drama reel can be very helpful. I hope that answers your question. All right. Good luck with all your footage.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
So then what happened in terms of the reel? Did you feel like it did anything in terms of getting you auditions, in terms of getting you?
I finished that I did it in August. I posted it in September.
Mm-hmm.
And so around this time last year, I started averaging about an audition a week.
Awesome.
And I feel very lucky because that started to happen again recently. So I can't stress how grateful I am for that.
Yeah.
I want more than that, but
sure,
that's still pretty good. And yeah, I was starting to see some traction, and then it just something about, I just started to feel overwhelmed with things.
Mm-hmm.
I think I was feeling a little tired. I was starting to get, auditions, co-star here, possible recurring here. I was over the summer, I'd been pinned for a recurring role on a Showtime show.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, did not get it. I went to like pin, and then I went to like high avail, which I didn't know that there was separate things.
So funny.
And then nothing. And that was popping my getting an avail and then no go cherry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that felt devastating because that was the first and only recurring role I'd ever gotten an audition for. That was an established recurring.
Mm-hmm.
And auditions were like once a month. And it's just like, if that doesn't do it, then when the fuck's the next opportunity going to come? Then I started getting these opportunities, but I was feeling, I was feeling demoralized. I felt like I wasn't doing my best audition work, and that's something I've been actively working on. But then, so this is what I love most about this. Things change on a dime. I went home to visit my family for my stepfather's birthday, And I just wanted a fucking break. I was going to get to see my family for a couple days. And an audition came in when I got off my flight for a guest star recurring role the next day in Burbank. I'd already booked out with my reps. I just landed in San Francisco and I saw it and I had the wrong first reaction, which was fuck.
Yeah, that happens to all of us.
That's not the right first reaction. After everything I was doing was geared towards getting that. And, you know, and I had a bad attitude about it, but I looked at it. I emailed my reps right away. I was like, hey, this is awesome. Since I booked out and I'm actually in San Francisco right now, can we check to see if they'll take tape? And they were like, of course. They checked, they'll take tape. So then I had all of the next day. I put it on tape with my mom and a step ladder because I forgot my equipment, which was another bad decision. I should have brought my equipment.
You always learn that lesson once.
Yeah, 3 times. I don't know. Yeah, didn't do it last time. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I got a rusty step ladder from the basement. I brought it up to the only place where there was lighting and a blank wall. My mom read. It was all this car jargon that I had to learn about, like corroborators, and I don't remember it now. But I just kind of wanted to get it done. I did all my work, but I was like, I don't want to like drill this into the ground, doing takes. I did 1 take with my mom reading, and the stepladder had this perfect slot that was just level at Head and Shoulders. It was like perfect. So I just wedged my iPhone in. I did 1 take. I did another. I did the second scene. I did a second take for the second scene. I was like, really? You don't want to do anymore? I'm like, I watched it back. I was like, no, I'm cool with that. And I sent it off. And the next day I was pinned.
Awesome.
And then Friday I booked. So the Tuesday that I was having my kind of like breakdown over wanting a break, that following Monday, I was stepping on an ABC set for my first ever guest star recurring role.
That.
It happened in less than a week.
I love that. Now, beforehand, did you have any relationship with that casting director? Had they seen you before?
Yeah. So it was Wendy O'Brien. And I'd gotten called in for Dave, which at the time was called Lil Dicky.
Yeah, Lil Dicky. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I got called in a month before that for this kind of like bro role that wasn't right for me. But I went in and I worked with I don't remember her name right now, but the lovely casting associate who kind of worked. I went in, I did it, and she really liked it. And she was like, she wanted to try different things. And so we like did a couple different takes, and it was kind of a blast. And I left and I was like, cool, that felt like I did my job. And I feel like I booked the room, but I definitely, I need to be taller and more fat looking.
Yeah.
And then I think the show that I got was Stumptown. It was with a different casting office, and then it switched to Wendy O'Brien. And then a month later, they called me in for that.
Oh, awesome. So
Through
I love this.
Through a different look.
Sure. I love this too, because I really feel like self-tapes, if they're going to cast you onto something, I just have to imagine that they have to have some context of you, that you are professional, that you're consistent, that you are capable, especially if it's going to be a recurring role, which it ended up going recurring. It was a guest star that ended up going recurring. And that's, you on a network television show, right?
Yeah,
like that's no small thing.
I still pinch myself. I still feel so like I still can't believe it. Yeah. And I'm very restless, and I'm still pushing forward, and I'm incredibly content that I have that opportunity.
Yeah. I love that.
Those things.
I love that. Well,
it's changed my life.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's how I felt when I booked Better Call Saul. I remember feeling like, oh, this is like a career altering credit.
Yeah.
And it was for me.
Lucky.
Was. Yeah. We'll go ahead and wrap because I know you got to get to work, but I just want to, we're going to ask you your questions, of course. First, I just want to say, I think this has been super helpful. I think just like people hearing all the even emotional ups and downs really can help normalize like that the growth isn't just like a continual inspiring process, like that there is inspiration, and then there is depression, and then there is anxiety, and there is frustration, and then you get back to inspiration. Okay. So first question. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah. In this time where it seems like my reps say, and I hear people saying, oh, things are now starting to pick up again and everything's getting back to normal, but it doesn't seem like it's normal per se. It just seems like it's halfway through getting back to normal and still being in a holding pattern because, let's not lie. They're cutting episodes from major shows. Things are getting reverse renewed. There's a lot different. And so I'm wondering, for anyone who is thinking I'm not getting the kind of traction that I want or the audition notices that I'm hoping for now that everyone's saying things are picking up again, what are the kinds of factors you think that those of us who are feeling that way should consider how much of it do you think is some certain things that we should be doing? And how much of it do you think we need to keep doing the things we're doing and know that we're weathering a storm?
I think it's definitely both. I think just with, this really isn't any different than just being a general actor. It's just we have like a really clear external force that's like, it's this, right? I think one of the things that's always really hard to gauge is it slow for you or is it slow? Right.
Yes.
And is it slow for you because it's slow for the yous out there in your category? Or is it slow because your reps stopped caring about you and you're not auditioning?
Yeah, things like that are the conundrum. That's what I'm getting at.
I think always,
is it slow for me? Is it slow for everyone?
It's interesting. I do think a healthy relationship with your representation is good. For instance, not too long ago, I was in Oregon. Jesse was shooting something. I came back and I had decided when I came back, I was going to really get back on the horse commercially because I had sort of felt like, I don't know, are commercials even a thing right now?
Hey,
like
congratulations.
Oh, thank you so much.
I saw some of those postings.
Thanks. And then what happened was I had my manager contact my rep. I also contacted my rep personally just to be like, I'm back in town. And we talked a little bit about life. And then I also did a private for commercials. And one of the things that came out of that was sort of discussing with this person through the private that maybe it's time for me to get another round of headshots. My last round was like 4 years ago. And so for commercials in specific, maybe do I need a few more looks? So I contacted my rep and I was like, hey, do you think it's helpful if I get some shots where I just look a little bit more mature because these are 4 years old and, don't need to spend money if I don't need to. Because I'm always like, I don't want them thinking that I'm like, shots will solve everything, but more like, is this a thing? Will this be helpful? And her response was so great. She was like, yeah, I think that, probably some new updated shots would be nice, but you're auditioning. So I don't know that it's like immediately vital. You're getting appointments. And it was so funny because from her rep perspective, like I was going out because we have a relationship. I know she'll be honest with me. She would tell me like, you're not auditioning. Like, we got to figure this shit out. Like she would let me know, but from her perspective, like you're going out.
Yeah. There's trust.
There's trust. Yeah. And that's built over time. And what I think people can be doing right now is a healthy mix of the same stuff we were always doing in the terms of like what this series for me is about. This mini episode series is like, get your shit together. What can you be doing to do what you can do without being a crazy person about it? It's always a fine line, right? Like put in the work, and then like trust that you're doing the work. And it gets easier, I think, when you're I've experienced, I don't know what you've experienced. I think it gets easier when you know that you've done the work and you've gotten results. And then you've done the work and you've gotten results.
It is for sure. I can't imagine what I would be feeling if this all had started up in March and I hadn't gotten the things I got. I would have lived with it. I was still been moving forward and everything, but I'm like, whoa. Like it's a different thing. It's a different level of calmness I feel over it all.
I also think just logistically, if this makes anyone feel any better in terms of what is or what isn't happening, I do think our business is probably actually in terms of auditions and all of that, I think it's been cut in half. I think that even with the streaming war that's going on, the guest stars, the co-stars, just the amount of people on a set, I think is less. And I think that the amount of episodes is less, as you said. They're spending X amount million more a season for PPE alone, not even for the
300 to 500,000 per episode.
Alex
said.
Isn't that crazy? And so to me, that's like, well, yeah, so they're not going to be able to do all the episodes. So that means all those guest stars and all those co-stars, those are all now gone. Right?
NCIS is now 16 episodes. It's like, whoa.
That's like, big. 16 from 24?
They just decapitated one of the top procedurals.
In the world, not just the top procedural, in like a global phenomenon procedural, right? And they gave it 16 from 24. That's 8 episodes that are now gone for actors.
Yeah.
Right.
I think there's comfort in that, in knowing it just, whoa, it's so ironic to feel alone in all this right now.
It is. But I do think I always find health in numbers and calm in numbers.
Yeah, me too.
Right? Great. Okay. So next question. What is the best part about the business for you?
That things can change on a dime like that. As long as I'm steady and one day at a time taking the actions that I need to take, it ends up having very little to do with how I feel or what my fearful thoughts are.
Yes.
As long as I'm still doing the actions, things change on a dime. And I now have proof of that.
Yes.
Like that story of like, oh, they were in a rut and then all of a sudden, bam, they got something. That's a real thing that happened to me now. And it happened like that. It actually can happen.
1 week you're upset and the next week you're on set for a recurring guest star.
Yeah. So don't trust the fearful thoughts and you can be rewarded.
I love that. What is the worst part about the business for you?
How time consuming it all is. The ratio of how much takes up my time pursuing this versus the ratio of how much of it is just the pure acting work. And I've come to terms with that, but it's very time consuming.
Yeah. It's a surrender. It's a surrender to a lifestyle.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
What do you wish somebody had taught you or managed to get you to understand when you were just a wee babe entering this business? Well,
really the things that you're doing. To be general, everything that you're helping educate us on with every topic. I think specifically the things that I'm going to be most proud of aren't the gratification I get from people telling me I've done a good job or from feeling like, oh, I have this acting thing, but that the ultimate rewards are going to be what I do when no one's watching, when I'm not feeling so hot, that when you feel like you just want to give up and then you just do the work that's in front of you anyway, it's not going to feel good at the time, but those are the things that are going to get you towards your dreams.
I love that.
I wish so much that I'd known that. It would have saved me years of darkness.
Yeah. Years of frustration. Yeah, for sure. Okay. And my last question for you is for all of those listeners out there who are wherever they are in their career, but they're in the middle of a quarantine and they're thinking about the time, energy, and money cost of getting their shit together. And they feel like they have the talent, but they maybe don't have the clear materials. They don't have the quality materials. They don't have good relationships with their representation. Is there anything you want to sort of say to them?
Oh, I don't know if there's one thing I could say. I just feel so much empathy for them.
Yeah.
If you're feeling disheartened, but you know you're not going to give up and that you love this, figure it out what is disheartening you and really examine it and get specific so that you're not general about it. Don't give up asking the questions and then seeking answers. Get frustrated, get angry, but just get active, even if that means you have to figure out because you're not sure exactly which shows you'd be on. Maybe that just means you passively watch a bunch of episodes of TV while you're not sure what to do. Casting seems to me to be like step one. So I think that's a good place to start for people who really haven't zoned in on it, but really just don't stop asking for help and advice. I don't really know what else to say. I feel so much for them because that's me.
Yeah, I totally feel you. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time. Have a fantastic day. And I can't wait for this to be shared. I think it's going to be really inspirational to a lot of people.
It is an honor for me, really. Thank you for having me.
Of course, you got it. Next week on Audrey Helps Actors, nothing. We're going to take like a month and then a half-ish off. I am filming and I am not available. So we're going to be sometime back in April to just give you guys a little head start on the very free Self-Tape May. Self-Tape May is free. It's a free little adventure for all of us that I started a few years ago based off of my own individual practice that I took 2 years and did self-tapes Monday through Thursday for about 2 years. So I challenged everyone to do a Self-Tape May challenge for 16 total tapes for the month of May. So you'll want to get your tapes ready. I will explain more about the rules once we come back, and just get your materials going. Get ready, get on We Audition, promo code Audrey25, get it going, and I will see you all in a few months. Thank you so much. This has been a wonderful, wonderfully inspiring series. I'm so grateful for every single guest. Thank you so much for Chuck Filipov. Thank you, Chuck, for coming on. Thank you for being So inspiring and so diligent and just so passionate. I think this is going to be a great episode. I hope everyone was as inspired by your journey as I am. Special thanks this week and every week to Thomas Hank Snodgrass for his incredible work with sound. Thanks, Tommy. You guys, Thomas loves to surf, so if you ever see him out there, just give him a little hang something sign, what you do with your hands. Executive producer, Jesse Lumen, my still so handsome husband, getting more handsome every year, I should say. Show music by Ari De Niro, theme song by Aalok Mehta and 108 Hill, and editing this season by Taylor Martorana. Taylor! Crushing it. We are so excited to have you join our team this season. All right, everybody, don't forget your towel.